SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning. Let's have a quick recap on the category that we were discussing in the last lecture. The category 1, category 2 and category 3. In the first category, it's a pure nature, pure landscape, natural habitat, undisturbed. In the category 2, human intervention is there to a certain degree, but without any intention of creating a landscape, rather I would say oblivious to the result that he is creating to the landscape, but that is also a category of landscape. Second category, it is not always bad. Quite often we go to the countryside, to the regional areas where you would like to see a hut, we would like to see a settlement, we would like to see a water body that has been created, we would like to see agricultural fields, we would like to see flower plantations like tulips. So, second category is not a negative category, mind it. Please do not keep this in your mind, the second category is not the right category, but I would say quite often we go out of our home to see the second category. Because the first category, if suppose you have to experience, then naturally what happens is in the first category there has to be some bit of explorations, there has to be some bit of adventures, you have to trade through areas which nobody has traded, you might have trouble, you may not have energy to go, but however that is the first category. In the second category, when you are seeing, it is a human intervention is there, but we also like it. So, if suppose we quickly recap it, in the last class we had, last lecture, the first category raw nature, raw nature, raw nature with a little bit of intervention. Yes, you can see a boat over there, people are boating in this, but still if you look at the picture, it is majority as landscapes and raw nature and raw nature. Then an intervention started, recall the last lecture, intervention started with a house built over here. So, there is a human intervention. As long as, let me clarify this, when a first category will be treated as first and when a second category still be considered as a first category, when the human intervention is very negligible. So, do not try to be very critical about, oh, I see a house over there, so it is no longer a first category. Do not be such critical, because that criticality makes no sense. As long as in the entire picture frame I have 99.9% as raw, it is first category. Then I would like to discuss more about the second category. In the second category, what happens is, there is a raw nature, one family landed up there, within the raw nature they made their own house and they made their own yards, and in that they are trying to build their own house. You may see a windmill at the back, you may see some kind of plantations which they have done, you may see an agricultural field which they have plowed, but that is a second category. Yes, it is a second category. Why? Because the raw nature has been now intervened. I will not use the term called disturbed, I would say intervened, and that intervention may be positive. Yes, that area has been developed and now it has become a wonderful landscape to view, and people go there, they rush from one place to another to see such kind of areas, but people who have created it, the user, he is absolutely oblivious about what he is creating. He is only thinking about his area and his domain, his function, his activity, and creating it, and the result came out to others as a wonderful view, wonderful landscape. So, if you look at these pictures now, here you can see such kind of brush of colors are made in the paintings, in watercolor paintings, but can you think about it, in the nature this has been done, and it has been done by people's intervention, and it has created such a landscape that people rush there to see, as if it's a kind of experience or view of the lifetime. So, second category does not mean it's a poor category or weaker category of landscape. No, in fact, I would very much stress upon this idea. All three categories are interesting, attractive, meaningful. It has nothing to do with which category it belongs to. Only if you as a user see that, enjoy, you have a pleasure in your mind. Look at this particular picture, the one that I am showing you now. In this, what happened is, what is the purpose of this landscape? Purpose is to make flower gardens. The person who has made it, or the group who has made it, they are not bothered about what is going to be the look of this particular area. They only delineated this parcels of land. They are growing flower plantations over there. There will be a time coming when they will pluck these flowers and ultimately sell it off in the market, and it will look different. When it will look different than what you are seeing now, you might find that nobody is coming there to see that, because the landscape does no longer attracts them. So, the attraction comes with what is on offer. Look at this. I showed you this picture in the last class. The green meadow, it looks so wonderful, so green, light, dark, and different hues of green, which makes a wonderful, it's a kind of, people, the photographers will fathom for going there and taking a picture of this. They will travel miles after miles to go and see this landscape and record it. And we are the persons who, if you see this picture, we enjoy, but we never had a chance to go there. So, the point is, the landscape has to attract people, generate the pleasure in the mind. Look at this picture. The question is, I have asked this to my students, is it a first category or second category? Quite often, majority of the students have responded this is a first category. Why? Because they are saying there is nothing which is artificial, everything is natural, but this is a second category. Let me clarify how. In this particular picture you watch, nature can never create such kind of profiles. It cannot create such kind of profiles. And another thing is, nature has created flat grounds beyond only a particular parcel of land where we have plantations, and we have large trees, and also we have plantations. These spaces have been reserved over here because this is a cropland, some kind of plantation croplands for revenue generation, and people have done it for proper accessibility to this. So, this has been, though if I really take stock of every cell of it and measure whether it is natural or artificial, I will find 100% of this particular picture frame. If I break this into small modules, they are all natural, but they are second category, because that particular parcel, the picture that I am showing you, is second category. Another thing, this has to be kept in mind. Whenever you are watching a landscape, you remember I said that where are you viewing from, what are you looking at, and what's your experience. In this case, the picture has been taken with a focus on that particular parcel of land. If the picture was taken slightly beyond, then probably we would have missed it. It would have been a different landscape. So, it is always with a frame of reference. So, whenever you are creating a landscape, frame of reference will become one of the very important criterion. I will discuss this when I will discuss about the behavioral issues, and that will lead to your design approaches. Okay. How about this picture? This also I have asked my students, because over the years I place these pictures to my students and always try to know their mindset. I will tell you, there are some people who spontaneously answer, this is the first category, spontaneous answer. I say, don't be so spontaneous, take time, watch, analyze with the theory that I am saying, and then you tell me whether it is the first or the second category. Then they focus on it, they try to identify what are those orange, yellow and such things. They try to identify what are these items. They try to identify, then they realize, oh my God, it is an area where they are drawing the pulses. and the spices. And these are the containers where they'll be keeping it here. Then they realize, oh, even if it's fully natural, apparently, actually it is not fully natural. This is a second category. But don't you think it's one of the finest landscape you could have ever seen, and you are missing it? This is how the whole landscape has to be viewed. Then comes the third category. In the third category, look at this. Look at this picture. If you leave this tractor out of this picture, rest of the portion is green, natural. If I go by the definition of landscape, I said it's predominantly outdoor, it is landscape. If I say it's natural material, it is landscape. If I say it is having a purpose, yes, it is having a purpose. It is being cropped, okay? But the pattern that it is making, it's wonderful, and people again take trouble to go there and see this kind of landscape. So what happens is, here it is being created. So in this, still a second category, because this, whoever is riding this particular tractor and trying to crop this, harvest this particular area, is not bothered whether it's making a wonderful geometric profile or it's making a dark light shadow, shade and shadow, highlights. He is not bothered. He is only bothered about his one outcome, that he should derive the revenue out of it. So this is a second category. Another one, second category. In this is a picture from Munnar. You see the tea plantation all over, and people take trouble. Tourist bureaus, they take us there, stop the car and request us to take photographs because it's a wonderful sight to view. Is it a first category? Look at it, every cell is full of greens, nature, but still it is not the first category, because nature will never make such linear alignments of trees. Nature will make it natural, organic. So the moment you see something that it is very much aligned, very much geometric, very much contrary to the organic creation, immediately you must have your first reaction, this must be second category. And if you find, no, everything is so organic, nothing is so geometric, and nothing appears to be that somebody has made it, even if somebody has made it. There are, I'll discuss this later, that there are situations when you can create such kind of landscape which will appear to be absolutely wrong, possible, because creation has no limit, creativity also has no limit, and your skill has no limit. So it is different issue. I'm not discussing that. Here what I'm saying is that if you find there is apparently no intervention, even if there is intervention, then you may treat this as a first category, because the categorization does not mean that it has not been different. Here the idea is, first category is raw in pure form, second category is with the human intervention. Then what is the third category? Okay, this is also the second category picture, in which the tea plantation area with the buildings and the factories and all, but people appreciate this view. They say it's a wonderful backdrop against which this particular white buildings are there. I see nice green hillocks and hills around and clear sky. So basically what happens is, people go and enjoy the nature. How about this one? This is a wonderful example. You may not know this place, but I have personally visited this area. It is Neuschwanstein Castle in Germany, in Fusen. I visited only in one season, but I wish I would have visited this in 12 seasons, because this landscape has been created by the ruler without really thinking that what he is really creating. But can you see this four picture and compare? That in spring it looks like this, in summer it looks like this, in autumn it looks like this, and in winter it looks like this. There are many other intermediate seasons in which they look different. When this ruler made this castle, he wanted to make the castle to show his power, show his wealth, and also wanted to be away from the common people, and he made it a castle like this. Now what has happened is, this castle became one of the element in the overall landscape, and that is the interesting part of the landscape. In the second category, he never bothered to see how does it look like from different angle, because that castle is being made. And now if you want to say this, if you would have had a helicopter rotated view, you would have seen different views of the same castle with the different backdrops. Here the interesting thing is, he didn't bother about that. Only thing he thought about at which height he is going to place the castle, how to get access to it, and how to structurally stabilize that particular castle. Now it has become a world renowned tourist spot where people are coveting to go there as soon as they can, as soon as they can afford. So this is the idea in this. This is also a second category. So here second category can also sometimes surpass the effect or the reaction of the first category. It is not necessary that every time we get so elated with the first category and the second category is the next level and the third category is the next level. No, sometimes this kind of things people would like to go there over and over again instead of going to some other raw areas. So this is what it is. Next is the third category. What is the third category? Third category is a deliberate attempt of creating a landscape. This is where our scope starts. First category, Almighty has created, endowed to us by nature. We cannot do anything other than destroying it. We cannot recreate it. That's the first category. We cannot recreate it. You cannot recreate hill, you cannot recreate sea, you cannot recreate forest. So it is endowed to us. That's the first category. So what is our role in this? Let me tell you, because I may not get the opportunity to say that again. In case you find that the first category is the worthy one, then don't even touch. Of course, many people say that if I don't touch, then what do I do? I would say do nothing. Do nothing is the approach that you follow for the first category and allow people to see it. Enjoy it. That's the first category. Second category, you don't bother because somebody else has created. If you think it is worthy of enjoying, enjoy. But the third category is the one in which we have our scope, in which basically what you are doing is you are creating deliberately a landscape space for its aesthetic value. Okay. Now, example, parks, gardens. Even nowadays we are terming this as amenity landscape also. All these are now society is asking us to create for them so that they get the benefit of it. And what kind of benefits? The environmental quality. If you remember the definition that you have talked about, the environmental quality with a predetermined purpose of having a clean air, nice view, wonderful plantations. So these are the things. Okay. Let's see some examples of the third category. I hope you can identify this as a Baha'i temple in Delhi, in India. If you see the landscape, the entire landscape has been deliberately created. I am not talking about the building. Building is, of course, building is also deliberately created because it is absolutely fresh. But how about the landscape which is around? This has been deliberately created. Now, if you see the purpose of this landscape, going back to our definition of the landscape, this was a raw area. In fact, I was lucky to see this particular piece of land before the Baha'i temple was constructed many years back, and I never expected that such a wonderful thing, and a piece of architecture, world renowned piece of architecture along with the world renowned landscape will be created over there. I never had any clue about it. Later on I was amazed to see that this is what it is. Okay, in this what happened is, okay, the building has been made, the rest of the area has been now created deliberately with purpose. What is the purpose? Accessibility. What is the purpose? Enjoying the beauty of it. And what is the purpose? Giving green base to the entire structure, thus increasing the humidity level of that particular area, reducing the air temperature in that hot arid zones of Delhi. That's the purpose. How about this one? Doesn't it look like a Persian carpet? But this is a landscape. This is a landscape which has been created with the concept of the Mughals Char Bagh. Okay. In this, what we have is everything is worked out very precariously, very dimensioned, no change in the dimension. Every idea, every plant, every grass, every green or the pathway has been worked out first on a piece of paper with dimensions, and then it was reproduced physically on site. This is the third category. Good or bad, let's not contest it. Let's first learn what are the categories. Whether you like it or don't like it, that let's not contest it now. How about this one? Does it really look like a garden? Doesn't it look like a sort of relief and recess work on the wall? But if you really look at and focus at this particular person, then you will know this is a garden. So craftily worked out, such a nice craft of work, such a nice work of hedge pruning, cutting, maintenance of other areas. This has become a wonderful example of a landscape. This is the third category. So basically what happens is, now if I try to summarize it, if it is raw nature, if you create it with a raw nature, it is basically first category. If you identify a landscape which somebody else has created for their own purposes and you enjoy this as a landscape, second category. And if you are now taking a piece of land which was raw originally, convert it to something else with landscape intentions, third category. So I hope that makes clear about what this category is about. But how about this one again? This probably you can identify, it's a library building top at Louvre Museum. This is also a landscape. Here you may not find any plants, but the thing is, so much of water bodies are there that if you really go there and you have a cool effects in this particular area, which is environmentally very soothing, very conducive. This is a third category. The structure could have been left there bare as it is. The pyramid could have been left over there, but the thing is, the architect designed the surrounding areas with all purposes served. That means it has to be very, very functional. This is the third category. How about this one? A Japanese garden. How come this is in the third category? Does it really give you an idea? No, this is not third category, because there is so much of natural things. But I can assure you, the classical Japanese gardens, every square foot of it is designed. If it is left as natural, it is also by design. And this is what you have learned from the history, the classical historical examples, that how you can create such kind of landscapes which are third category. That means here I won't treat this as a second category, because it is not the idea of the architect or the designer or the landscapist of this particular project to design this as, putting a pagoda in the midst of a garden. It was the idea of designing the entire garden with a pagoda as one of the element. So that is why it is the third category. So pagoda became one of the elements, just like any other plant may be, any other rock may be. The bridge has become another element, just like any other items. So here this becomes a truly third category. But there are also other categorization of the landscape. Let me share with you that. See, other than the first, second and third category, which you are likely to design in your professional life, you would find that people are also talking about categorization in this four way. One is natural, and there is regional, and there is urban, and there is cultural. Okay, let's see, what is this natural? Basically, naturals are meadows, dunes, forest, hills, sea. It means anything that is natural will be termed as natural category of landscape. It may be within your domain also. It may be just beyond your city limit also. But the thing is, the moment it comes beyond your city limit, we generally try to say that and mark it as regional, because we have the urban limits. Beyond that, we think beyond urban limits is a regional or rural. So we think that anything in that particular area is a regional kind of landscape. So when you are categorizing, it may sometimes happen that something which is natural may also be regional. Something which is regional may also be natural. Let's see what is regional. Similar, forest, hills, sea, rivers, lakes, dunes, deserts, because they are not within your urban area, they are beyond your urban area, so they are regional. Okay. Then comes urban. In this urban, basically wherever urbanization has taken place, you will find that there are many items which are associated with the buildings, structures at the city level, at the urban level, at the house level. Okay. So there could be interiors, patios, terraces, courtyards, gardens, parks, lanes, avenues, boulevards, squares, ponds, lakes, canals, riverfronts. All these are, we consider this as urban. But mind it, if it is coastal, then what would you call that? Probably we will treat this as natural or regional. But if it is coastal, where we have just beyond the coastline all multi-story hotels are placed, they probably will be losing that sense of pure natural or regional sense of this. This is where, when we are trying to categorize it, we have to be slightly more specific, slightly more categorical. How about the cultural? Cultural landscape will be mostly referring to the history of that particular area, how the landscape was created. It may be natural even. The English gardens, they are trying to emulate the nature. In Japanese garden, they are not really emulating the nature, they are recreating the nature in a miniaturized form. But the English gardens, they try to emulate the nature. What is there in the region, try to create in my urban areas as well. Okay? So, the idea is that if you are seeing this, that whatever is connected with the history of that particular area, or the past of that particular area, or the taboos, or the cultures, then they will be all cultural landscapes. This particular cultural landscape is slightly blurred in their definition, and so people have different views. So, when I discuss with different people, I learn more in different ways. Then if you think about the nature of landscapes, very commonly we say it is a soft landscape or hard landscape. Whenever we talk about the landscape, we say it is a soft landscape or hard landscape. The question is, what are soft and what are hard? Whether the hill is hard or hill is soft, this question cannot be really answered, because when you are seeing in the landscape, hill is far away. If you touch the hill, it is hard, but when you look at the background of water body, it is soft. Okay? So, all right, let me just show you some of the samples of this soft landscape. The meadows, dunes, forest, hills, sea coast, rivers, streams and springs, ponds and lakes, vegetation. They will be most commonly treated as soft landscape in our landscape. And how about then hard landscape? Pavements, roads, steps, ramps and other things, seats and benches, lampposts. It is a very important element in our landscape. Fences, arbors, where you find the creepers and you have a pathway through, gazebos for shelter, for sitting, for retreat, signages, buildings. So, what happens is, basically the bridges, of course. Basically what happens is, when you are looking at the whole landscape scenario, the best way to evaluate is this: anything that appears to be hard, artificial, anything that appears to be hard, artificial, they are all hard landscapes. Anything that appears to be soft, natural, they are natural landscapes. Okay. Let us look at some of the materials in terms of natural: rock, cobbles, sand, water, tree, logs, shrubs, creepers, grasses. These are all natural materials. Now, you cut this particular rock and make a block and shape it absolutely smoothly, it becomes artificial material. You take this particular log and cut it and make it the different components of a bench, it becomes artificial materials. But log in its own form, we try to consider this as a natural material. Then how about the artificial materials? Iron, steel, brick, concrete, FRP. This is with shapes. With the FRP you can bring any kind of textures onto it. That is a very interesting part. With the FRP you can make even rocks out of the FRP, which is false, but still we will discuss this in later. Wood, glass. So, these are all artificial materials. So, is it clear now that here the landscape has natural landscape and artificial landscape. We have hard materials and soft materials. Thank you. Thank you for listening. We will discuss further.